What a first week it has been. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I am switching back to a weekly wrap-up because if you haven't seen already, April is a month of readathons. I did a video about the Battle of the Bands readathon. I'm also doing the TBR Blitz in the Keymark Discord as well. So between the two readathons, which Battle of the Bands, which I'm team captain of ECDC, the best team that's definitely going to win, is 20 prompts in total, and so I am very much trying to get to all of them, even though that's definitely a lot more books than I normally read. So with that in mind, I jumped in pretty hard with trying to get through as much as possible, and I'm pretty pleased with my progress so far for this last week I'm going to talk about, and with what I've gotten through since then that I'm going to include in next week, because we've technically switched over. But let's jump in and talk about it. So first we have The King's Justice and the Augur's Gambit by Stephen R. Donaldson, which this actually just says Stephen Donaldson, I just realized, and there's no R, which is not what I'm used to seeing, but I picked this up a while back just because I really enjoyed the first Thomas Covenant trilogy, and I was interested in trying something that's newer from Donaldson, and I have his newer series too, but I didn't want to get to that until I get to his old stuff first, so I'm like, oh, I'll do this. This is 2 novellas. And The King's Justice, the first one, I quite liked. It was very dark. It's a man who's literally the King's Justice going around trying to figure out a murder that's taken place, and there's kind of a deeper thing he's trying to figure out this mystery of that I thought was really, really good and I quite enjoyed. That was the shorter one. The longer one, The Augur's Gambit, was more so, it was you only had the augur and trying to figure out what was going on and kind of some political conspiracies and whatnot, but I found myself enjoying it less. So between the two, it balanced out to be pretty solid. I did quite like The King's Justice. Augur's Gambit was alright as well, but that was the first one there. And then I did read the ebook for the new Secret Project 2, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. I was trying to remember the full name. I'm pretty sure that's right. And I had a lot of fun with this one. So the first Secret Project Tress, I did like. Wasn't fully my thing with kind of the fairy tale thing, but I quite enjoyed it. This one, though, was just a lot of fun. And I know the Sanderson's humor is kind of hit or miss for people, and it starts with some pretty dumb humor, kind of just the, absurd type of stuff. Because the opening of this one, which I wasn't expecting, I made the joke, it's kind of like Pratchett and Adams mishmash, along with Army of Darkness, Sam Raimi movie starring Bruce Campbell, and it was just really, really crazy and ridiculous. But then it actually ended up being like a much deeper story with the characters and kind of finding out the backstory of everything going on than I was expecting. So it had a lot of just kind of dumb humor and ridiculous situations, went into kind of a deeper background story, and altogether was just something different than what I would have expected from Sanderson, because it was in several ways pretty different from his normal kind of story. Dealing with, once again, this is kind of like, it's more sci-fi than fantasy. You could call it sci-fantasy, but dealing with like alternate dimensions and that sort of thing. There is some kinds of magic actually in there, but dealing with a character who doesn't remember who he is, and then there's a big like plot going on that he has to try and figure out and jump in, and him finding out who he is and remembering things from the past I thought was handled really well, and so I quite enjoyed this one. I enjoy this actually a lot more than Tress personally, although I did like Tress. Next up, I did Sins and Sorrows by Mike Mullman. This is book 1.5, Protectors of Brittany. I had previously read the first book that I quite enjoyed, and I really enjoyed this one as well. This starts with, we get a little bit more of Grame, and finding out what happened before and then directly after the events of the first book. And then we get more POVs here, because this is a first-person story, so here we get some first-person still from some other characters that we had seen, which was interesting and gives us a lot more background on not only the world, the kind of the political situation, more information on magic and kind of the things going on, but just really filled in a lot. So I liked that, with finding out more of things that were happening with these other characters and what was going on. Really, the only thing that I thought was just kind of odd and that I wasn't a huge fan of was that all of the characters had one particular big thing in common, where they were like part of this like big family, and they were kicked out of that family and they were trying to get back into the family. All different families of status, but like that one aspect was the same for all of them, and I'm just like, that seems kind of odd. I don't know why it was the same situation for each one of these stories, but I had a really good time with it overall, and I still enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to reading book 2, which is To Speak with Elders, because this is a series I have been enjoying so far. Next up, then, I finally, long overdue, continued Discworld with Interesting Times, and found myself surprised because I actually liked this one. I'm not a Rincewind fan, and I think that's part of why it's taken me so long to get back to Discworld, because I am reading in publication order, which I know isn't really normal, but I'm reading in publication order, and I knew I have this Rincewind book, and I'm just like, freaking Rincewind. I'm just not a fan. This was actually pretty good. We have a split. We have Rincewind, but we also have Cohen the Barbarian featuring pretty heavily here. Cohen, being a character that I do find a bit more humorous, is pretty one note with the jokes with Cohen the Barbarian and his silver horn, but it still was kind of enjoyable. And so combining that with having Rincewind and having the plot going on here, this brings us to, for the first time, the Counterweight Continent, which we heard about as early as the first book. And so this was kind of following up on some things that happened from, I guess, the first 2 books, really, with going back to similar characters and everything. And I just didn't find Rincewind quite as annoying in this, so actually ended up with a solid 4 stars, which surprised me once again for a Rincewind book, but not going to complain here. Next up, then, we have A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This is the memoir of Lady Trent, the first book. And I had picked this up randomly, and my library also has all of these, and so I figure I'll probably continue. I did audio, which I liked. It's Kate Redding actually doing British accent, and I thought it just felt perfect for the character. Now, this is one where the concept I found to be very interesting, and I liked the concept and the basis of the story, but the execution I felt was a little lacking for me. We kind of moved partway through to a kind of mystery conspiracy plot that just felt a little clunky. It seemed really evident what was going on, and I just wasn't a fan of that direction. However, I was interested enough overall in it, and especially since the audios aren't super long, and I enjoyed the audio enough too, that I will probably continue this at some point, although it's not going to be like high on my list. But since, like I said, my library has all of the audio, I'm like, I might as well continue at some point, so we will definitely check that out. And then, probably the highlight of, I read a lot of good stuff, but probably the highlight, I guess I would say, is Silverthorne by Raymond Feist, and this is the technically book 2 in Rift 4, because I count Magician as 1, especially since I read the combined version, and I've been meaning to get back to this for so long. It's just been on the back burner for way too long, so I was really excited to get to this, and Silverthorne did a really great job of, because Magician is a really complete book. And I think that's part of why I was really wanting to continue, but Magician is such a complete book and so much happens in that combined book that you don't feel like there's a lot of missing things to pick up. So this really kicks it off going with where the bigger plot is building, going in a different direction. And we spend a lot more time with characters like Arutha, and Jimmy the Hand especially features a lot comparatively. And so setting up these new things, we still have pretty much all of our characters from the first one in big or small parts, because some of them don't show up until later and don't play a huge role, but we see a lot of those characters still. But this does, mostly this is kind of a quest book, and I like quests. I think many of you probably know that already, because I mentioned I really like the quest trope. And so it's questing to find the answer to somebody poisoned my Silverthorne. Now, granted, the back of the book spoils a lot of big points, and so I'm just not going to. But to find a quest that leads them lots of different places where we see some new characters, some returning characters, trying to get it figured out, all the while finding out more about this great darkness that seems to be coming. I'm guessing it's going to be at Sethanon, since that's the title of the third book. But finding out about this big thing coming, and so I'm really excited to get to book 3, especially because book 3 is also not a super long book, so I'm really curious to see how it's all going to fit in. But this flowed really well, just did a lot of things that I like, and I had a great time with it. Also has me excited to read. I have the like Heroes of the Rift War books, which are kind of like side books, and I know there's one of them for Jimmy the Hand. I can't remember who the other 2 are for, but it has me interested to read those as well. So really good to continue this. I'd meant to for so long, and I was really happy to finally get to it. And then finishing it out for what was for the week was Outlander II in the Realm of the Wolf. This is obviously the follow-up to Outlander and continuing Draenei, another series that I have been really looking forward to continuing because I've enjoyed all of them. And This one, I could not help but thinking, reminded me of like, so Waylander 2 is basically just like John Wick. It's Waylander who's kind of gone into retirement and trying to just live a happy life, and then some stuff happens, and all the killers are coming for him, and so he's kind of just got to go from there. There was a bigger plot that's set up. I'm being a little bit vague with it, but especially since it's Waylander 2, I don't really want to talk too much about what happens in Waylander or anything like that. But overall enjoyable is another one where it's definitely, Waylander wasn't really one of my favorites out of them either, but it's still enjoyable, and I've yet to have a Gamma book that I did not enjoy, and none of them have been anything less than 4 stars at like a minimum. This was included. Still enjoyable, did some interesting things in the way that it's set up, and showed some more of the things that tie into Legend kind of more directly, which I thought was pretty cool, because there's some like prophecies and some things set up that if you read Legend, which is where I started, we already know what's going to happen there, and so it was really cool to have some of those tie-ins. I really like that we've gotten that, because Waylander, the first one, also specifically related to some things that are highly relevant later in the series when we get to, well, the first publishing book. And so really enjoyed that one. I'll definitely obviously be continuing here. I have a few more of the earlier timeline ones. Specifically, I know I've got the 2 that are specifically for a young Druss, which I am really interested to see as well, because I'm looking forward to seeing more Druss as well. So I have a couple of those, and then I think I've got, after I'm done with those ones, I have one more that's like later timeline, and then I think there's some prequels. So I'll be continuing Gemmel's Nothar. I plan to pretty much read everything that he's written anyway, and I know it's going to take a while to do that, but I have been enjoying the heck out of my time with Draenei in general. So that is all I'm going to go here. I ended up finishing another audiobook on Saturday really late, and so I'm not counting that as the first week. We're counting that for week 2, so we'll talk about it then. Because I'm going to need some time to talk about that one for sure. So that's pretty much it for this week. I will be doing a review for Frugal Wizard and A Natural History of Dragons that'll be coming out later this week. If you want to hear more about my thoughts for those ones specifically. So it'll be, you'll have that to look forward to if you want to hear more about my thoughts on those books. Otherwise, that is really it for this one, so let me know what you read in the last week, if you are doing one or both of the readathons that I'm participating in, and hopefully you're on my team. If not, just know you're going to lose, but I still want to hear from you with what you read, or if you're trying to push through a lot as well. So this is, if I actually get through all of the books, which at this point is looking doable. I've been off to a really good start, so I'll have to see. I got a couple Augments later. Interested to see how long I can keep this pace up, but we'll find out. That's it for this video, though. Make sure to give it a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Duo Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It is a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.